Hello there, everybody. This is DraftKings UK. My name is Taran Atkins. I am your host for the English Premier League Week 2. We are now looking at the choosers, losers, and hidden gems. That's right. These are the people that we want you to look out for or ignore, and perhaps a little bargain there. As ever, I'm joined by Andy Davis, Edo Del Monte, and Jamie Hinks. Let's start with Edo. Edo, who is your chooser this week, Week 2 of the English Premier League? Who should we all keep our eye on?
Eric Lamela of Tottenham for 7,300, simply because he was exceptional in his first game. And I'm going to keep repeating this because even the BBC got hold of his stat, and it's 7 straight games. He's always contributed to a goal. I believe it was 5 assists and 2 goals scored, but I'm not exactly sure on that. But he was very, very good against Everton, one of the only players that didn't fold in the first half. And yeah, as Andy was saying earlier, and Andy watches all the games, he's consistent. So especially when you consider he's playing Crystal Palace, who don't look particularly solid defensively. He also takes corners, which obviously is a big thing against Crystal Palace, and the fact that he can target someone like Alderweireld, or they've got some good headers of the ball. So I really like him as a chooser.
Love your logic. He is playing Crystal Palace. Talking to Crystal Palace, let's turn to
so beating up on
Let's
Palace.
turn to Crystal Palace super fan. Crystal Palace super fan. Jamie Hinks.
Super fan.
Last week on Facebook, you even put a picture up of your season ticket, didn't you?
Yeah.
I know. I saw it. I went, you poor sorry bastard. Jamie, who's your chooser this week? Is it a Crystal Palace player?
Sadly not, because I'd have loved to have done that to myself. But no, my chooser is Riyad Mahrez, of course, 9,900. Just so he can show Arsene Wenger what he's missing. Just so he can show Arsene Wenger what he would have got if he'd actually gone out and spent some money. 22 points last week against Hull, which I was really impressed with, although I know he can do that every single week. I just think he'll do well against Arsenal's defence. I mean, even though Koscielny's going to be back, there's still going to be a Holding or a Chambers there who didn't. I mean, I'm not going to criticise them because they're young. They're not experienced. They shouldn't be thrown into these games by Wenger. But if he's not going to buy any defenders, then that's what happens.
That is what happens. And let's not forget that the two central defence pairing at Arsenal, combined age is younger than Andy Davis. So, yeah, picking a Leicester player might not be a bad thing. Your chooser this week, Andy Davis?
My chooser is the 18th best player in the world, Eden Hazard of Chelsea. It's just cheap. It's 7,800, which is really cheap for a top class. I can't say saying nice things about Chelsea players. It makes me feel ill. But anyway, he's worth every penny. Eden Hazard is going to have an absolute blinder this weekend. Buy him.
And I concur with what Andy just said. I think you should buy the 5th best footballer in the world. Edo, who's the loser? Who's the guy we should all avoid? Who's going to stink the weekend out? Who do you believe it will be?
Alexis Sanchez.
Oh, yes.
I was close to doing that too.
And I'm kind of regretting it already. But look, okay.
It's a big call. It's a big call. A player
Yeah.
of his calibre to say that he's going to be a loser this weekend against Leicester. Why so?
Well, so this is the thing. I think Leicester City against Hull, they looked at this team and went, this is just a bunch of dudes and we can play slower football. We can try and get people like Musa and Mahrez to go for the dribble. They got their game, their whole game strategy wrong, basically. I don't think they would against Arsenal, even though they lost twice to them last season. One of them was that early 5-2 beating, but that was with Arsenal starting defensive Koscielny and Mertesacker. Now you're going to have, as we've mentioned, at least one hole in central defence. Even worse, Sanchez has actually been quite disgruntled this summer. There have been sort of rumours always floating about a potential departure, and considering that he was playing Liverpool's not excellent defence, he was pretty much, he was quiet at the Emirates, really, and I believe he got subbed off at one stage. So that's kind of worrying, and if he's going to be grumpy and say, well, look, it's all on me. There's something else I've got to say very quickly, is that when we talk about best player in the world, the 10, 15 best players, I think Sanchez does end up in there, and Ozil as well. But the fact that they play for Arsenal is now negative. It's not a positive, you're dragging this team by the scruff of the neck. It's almost a negative. It's, we're forgetting about you. Like, Arsenal are the Russia of European football. Sometimes you go there, people I'm not saying people forget about you. They know you're there, but it's not a plus anymore. So, yeah, I think this won't be. And Leicester City's defence, I think, will work better. I think it's a team that won the championship the title last year. So I think he could get shut out.
That is a sad indictment. You say that a world-class player playing for Arsenal is what Andy says. It's like playing for a hedge fund. You're playing for a team with limited
really
ambition.
like that analogy, really.
That's a brilliant analogy and a scary one. And a few of our friends, very good friends, are Arsenal fans, aren't happy with us for that. Jamie, let's go to you. Who's your loser? Who's the man to avoid?
Odion Ighalo, 7,300. He's going to have a terrible afternoon against Chelsea. If you really want to pick a Watford striker, pick Troy Deeney, because Ighalo, 2 points last week. I don't think he had any shots. I don't think he really did anything. Southampton aren't world beaters. They conceded a goal. And I said last week, if Watford score, it should probably come from a Gallo. It didn't. And yeah, I just don't think... I mean, from very good in the first half of the season, but from January onwards, he didn't really do anything. He was very poor in that FA Cup run that they somehow stumbled to the semis. And he was in a team that lost to an Alan Pardew managed Crystal Palace who won 2 games this year.
Indeed.
I mean, that stuff in the summer with him maybe going to China must have distracted him as well. Not that he was on any form, but I mean, 7,300 is a lot of money to spend on a striker who I don't think is going to give you anything beyond a goal. So he'll get you 12 points. That's probably it if he scores, which he won't.
Interesting insight, though, there. Personally, I'm quite scared of him this week. I'm a Chelsea fan, and it's Watford's first home game. It's a classic shop window opportunity for him against an aging defensive pairing. So we'll see, but I understand. Andy, who's your loser this week? Who's the man to avoid, my friend?
I've gone for Harry Kane. It's just too expensive. I think he's the most expensive striker available this weekend, and he's tired. He's knackered. I love him. He's not going to go away. He's going to come back. He's going to still probably get 20 goals a season. But at the moment, he's played every minute of every game since November 2015 for club and country. You've got to rest him. He's got to be rested. He's broken. He's fixable, but I feel he's just tired. Just give him the day off. Let him go shopping in Wood Green.
Have
a little bit of
Andy, that's one way to look at it, my friend. But I have to say, that's one way to look at it. But he is up against Scott Dan.
I'm not beating up on Crystal Palace.
He plays for Palace.
Damien, go for Delaney. Go for the low hanging fruit.
Scott Dan's he's a future Allardyce pick.
He's a future England centre back
last week. I'm not beating up on Crystal Palace. I just think that Harry Kane is tired and needs a rest, and I think he might even get a rest this weekend anyway. So there we go.
Right, hidden gem time. Jamie, you are very dependable in this area. You usually do pick a guy that we've never heard of who will get us all points. So who is it this week? Who's the hidden gem?
I've gone for Matt Phillips, $4,500. I thought he was one of the best players on the pitch against Palace last weekend. Our defence isn't up to a huge amount, but I think it tells you a lot that the most tackles of any player in the whole league last weekend was Zaha, who was playing with Suarez on the flank where Phillips was attacking for most of the game. He's so direct. He just down the wing every single time. 4,500. He could easily get an assist this weekend, especially when you've got Rondon in the middle getting on the end of those balls. And I really like him as a player. I think he's kind of had a few... I mean, QPR, for some reason, they didn't want to play him every single week, which I didn't really understand. And Holloway was really reluctant to sell him for so long from Blackpool, so I think he could be higher up than this by now if he'd moved earlier. And he was only like 7 or 8 million. Bargain. I think, he's got the skill set which would make him a good DraftKings player, I think, just in terms of crosses, shots, and assists.
Great sound logic. Edo, sorry to disturb your writing there, my friend. Who is your gem this week?
I'm torn between 2 Swansea players who may not even start, but if they do, it'll be on the left, and that'll be either Modou Barrow or Jefferson Montero. When Montero came on last week against Burnley, he was very, very good, and in fact, it was from one of his crosses that Swansea were able to eventually equalise. Another one just went slightly over Llorente's head, and I think Ian Wright had a go at him and said, "Oh, you've got to put that away," and it was like, no, it was just too high, Ian, but never mind. Football's not for everyone. They can... Hull City will have a lot more to defend, and I think Swansea do have the kind of football that can break them down. We were mentioning that Leicester were just a little bit too individualistic, and there was one really nice moment where it was all first-time passes, but it didn't work for them. Otherwise, I think Swansea will be able to break them down. And both Barrow and Montero had 3 crosses. Right. Rutledge had 6. You've got attacking fullbacks, and you've got Gylfi Sigurdsson, so maybe too much to defend against. So they're both very cheap. They're in the 5,000 or so range. Montero may be even worth the play if he comes on as a sub. And you talked us all about when you picked Hungary's second scorer against Austria, whose name I've forgotten.
Striebler.
Yeah, Zoltan Striebler. And he scored that lovely chip goal. So I will,
We'll never forget the name.
Ruud Stieber.
So basically, what Edo's very good. What Edo's saying is look for the wings. Really, look for the left-sided wide men of Swansea. That's your gem. Andy Davis, finally, your gem.
Linked into Harry Kane being my loser, I've gone for Vincent Janssen because even if he's sub, he's worth picking because he's going to come on, and I think he's going to score this weekend. I think that's nailed on, as is Llorente. Llorente and Janssen, put them up front and you've got plenty of money for your midfielders. and at least 3 goals. You heard it here first and only here. I've got a feeling that Harry Kane might even be rested, in which case Janssen will start. He looked really good against Everton for the half he came on.
Excellent.
And I think he was worth more points than Harry Kane was in one half than Harry Kane was in the entire game, and he didn't even score. So that tells you the sort of level of form of the two players. Vincent Janssen all the way.
And that could continue. Personally, I would go for DeAndre Yedlin of Spurs, but I don't think he's ever going to play for them.
He's on his way.
He's on his way?
He's on his way out. I believe he might be going back to Sunderland.
Oh, we'll have him at
Excellent news for David Moyes. I think he's a fantastic player. But you're not interested in that. What you're interested in is who you're going to pick for your 8-man lineup, your roster for DraftKings Week 2. Everybody, get involved. Download the app if you already haven't. Select your 8-man team. Welcome to the big time.